As tension continues to rise in the Niger Republic, Mali and Burkina Faso have dispatched warplanes to the West African country in a show of solidarity against possible military intervention by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Burkina Faso and Mali, both under the military leadership, previously released a statement of support for Niger against the planned ECOWAS military operation to alter the course of coup in Niger. It's one that any intervention will be seen as a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. General Abdurrahman Tichani, the former commander of Niger's Presidential Guard, declared himself last month the head of a transitional government after President Mohamed Bazoum was ousted by a military coup. Joining us to discuss this latest development around the situation in Niger is Major General Ibrahim Bata Malgwi Haruna, popularly known as IBM Haruna, a former commissioner for information and culture and also the former chairman, Executive Council of Arewa Consultative Forum. Welcome to the show, sir, and good to see you once again, the famous Major General IBM Haruna. Good to see you and good to talk to you.
Very much. Sir. It sounds like Rufai.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're very good friend, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. Bless you, sir. Sir,
yes, Rufai.
Make sense of what is happening in Niger for us, sir.
Well, if I have heard you clearly, I should make sense to you as what is happening
in Niger, with this conundrum with ECOWAS, with this, conversation, diplomatic conversation as regards restoring Bazoum to office. Now, the coupists have said that they will give them a 3-year window to be able to do this. ECOWAS is kicking against that. And our thoughts about invading Niger and all of that. Make sense of all of this conundrum going on.
Right. Thank you very much for inviting me. We hear about what's going on through the media. And from what I hear, I try to put it in some kind of context. And in my own perception of the context in which these things are happening starts from the end of the Second World War, where the conspiracies against African colonized countries had started. Because while the world was siding end of the war and setting up the United Nations organization, the Western powers had laid down a charter from which they have conspired, by the look of it, to ensure that the negative gains of African past colonial countries in their independence. The conspiracy seems to work in every cycle of 50 years. And in each cycle, the post-colonial independent countries make progress. But at the end of that cycle, things developed in sort of a conspiracy to reverse their gains in each of these cycles. In one cycle, the independent countries, through patriotism and nationalism and their independence. The next cycle, they are being destroyed through coups and new sets of constitutions have been set up. And I think in the present context, the world order is being threatened with a change, reversing from the bipolar world we had, and the development through that to the present position where the United States of American dollar is being threatened, and the BRIC nations are setting up a challenge. Then the natural resource country like Africa that provides the resources for the development that are going on in technical in the technical world, including the communication and other technology revolutions, have put them in a position where they feel threatened, and the world order that is pending will not probably be so much in favor to them, and they like to ensure that they orchestrate this likelihood of the third World War, or whatever World War we now move in Africa, where the resource base of future technologies are cited. And I think that to ensure that they succeed, they have planted their feet in Niger, where some of the critical resources are found, which they have been exploiting. And I think to ensure that they dramatize the new orchestration of entrenching themselves as dominant powers, they are all in Niger. They probably know about or planned the coup, which they wish to see succeed in their own view to meet their ends, because constitutionalism, which the ECOWAS are trying to go and implant, is not a constitution that was created by foreigners. It's created by the independent sovereign state of Niger. They are surrounded by other foreign, non-constitutional government. I dare say that the real intent is to overthrow the constitutional governments and make it look as if the other African countries and ECOWAS have real concern about the constitutionality of the governments chosen by sovereign people in their country.
All right, sir. All right, General Haruna, thank you very much.
My view really is that ECOWAS has no real business in mobilizing a war against the neighbors of Nigeria, except to tarnish Nigeria in its good relationship and prospects in the world economy and order of things that are going on.
All right, okay. I hear you. Thank you, General Haruna. But let me ask a question. ECOWAS, in their last deliberation with regards to the heads of state and government in Abuja, had said they were going to explore the diplomatic channel to the extent to which Niger is willing to dialogue. And in the event that fails, they didn't rule out military action. Now, the Nigerian General Abdurrahman Chiani has said he needs a transition time of 3 years, which ECOWAS have said is not going to work. What's your take on this? Is Niger playing hardball? At least ECOWAS has tried to dialogue with them, tried to open that communication in terms of diplomacy, but the Nigerian junta is not making it easy. 3 years transition, does that make sense?
I must confess that your audio is really not very clear in my ears, but I can take from the lines of what I gather is that the ECOWAS are playing, after their sanctions, are planning a military invasion.
Let me ask in simpler terms.
My view really is that.
Can I ask in a simpler term?
Well,
I was just asking you to respond.
No, I understand you. I understand you. Let me just land.
Okay, so to the three-year transition
believe that
period.
the government's program, the 3 years transition program, or
Yes.
how many years transition program,
Yes.
is the sovereign right of the Nigerian government with their people. So the invasion cannot be legitimized merely because we are opposed to the process which they have taken as a sovereign people to evolve their own constitution. So I think in the first place, having recognized the government and knowing that they are operating within the sovereign rights of their people, it is for the people to say, I don't think that the mandate of ECOWAS as an economic community includes imposing themselves on a sovereign country and trying to play the power game of politics as if they are United States of America in the world, or France, as the case may be, their past colonial masters.
All right, General.
But if you recognize the sovereignty of the people, you recognize their government, you are negotiating with them, you have not exhausted the diplomatic negotiations with them, and I don't think it is either the right of ECOWAS to legitimize and impose a government or a constitution of the people of Niger. And I think the issue of the war I've dismissed as they have no mission that is consistent with the prospects of getting Nigeria or the people of Africa or ECOWAS in the development world map where they will be relevant and making contributory inputs to the benefits and interests of our own African people.
Okay, General, if I may, my thought is that you're a retired general. You have seen coups in your time as a serving officer, a general, and you have seen when you left office across Africa. Number of coups have happened since you retired. Now, help us understand, when you have a situation where states or nations around one country are beginning to want to dictate to coup leaders what they can or cannot do, what they should or should not do, the thought will be that they will dig their foot in and just go with whatever they want, especially in view of Mali, Burkina Faso, wanting to send warplanes to them and saying we're supporting, and also having Wagner wanting to get in through Russia to say we will support you. What is your thoughts? How do you think this can be handled to ensure that things don't get worse?
Well, if you are talking about going in or with going into the country as a ECOWAS force, an aggressive way, not exhausting diplomatic discussions and getting to a resolution, things are bound to get worse. Not only that they will get worse, you cannot, as at now, foresee how it will be concluded and what successes or failures they are going to achieve will move ECOWAS, Africa, or the third world forward. I think really the basic question is that should ECOWAS undertake this kind of battle mission against a fellow African country under an economic arrangement. I think world security has sufficiently been arranged, and that we have hierarchy of organizations that if consultations and discussions are made with them, like the African Union, for example, the United Nations security agencies, then we will not make such blunder as to try to encourage warfare, particularly in our state of economy and politics, and the fact that we know that putting all things together, Nigeria in ECOWAS is being used as a bait but the real intentions are very clear. As I said earlier, it's a manipulation for a third world chaos and a search for a viable new world political power order.
Right. We've said all of this. We've talked about the Russian conundrum. We've talked about the AGNA. We've talked about what ECOWAS is doing. I'd like to ask, are you comfortable with this 3-year transition period this military leaders in Niger are putting forward?
Well, it's not a matter of my comfort. As I said earlier, there is a sovereign country. There is government in that country. You have not approved, or there is perhaps no approval for coups. But coups have been taking place, and democracies have evolved from coups, like in Nigeria. We had several coups, and now we are still in the clouds with democracy. I think I have said as earlier that we should leave the people minding their business, arrive at their own government in the form that expresses their wish. After all, there are governments that have no written constitution. There are governments who evolved their unwritten constitution by modern coups, by hacking even their monarch, and by the general being magnanimous and saying, look, I am not taking the mantle of being a head of state. And that's how the British government has evolved their government, without any writing. And they have a constitutional monarchy. And it's called a democracy. They have a parliamentary system. We have chosen the presidential system. The Nigerians are free to choose what system goes well for them in the present state of affairs of political development in the continent.
All right, well, the
bottom line really is that I think if we believe in democracy, we believe in freedom, we believe in liberty of expression. Therefore, we must allow people these same beliefs that we have as a sovereign people to express themselves. We will, of course, interfere, ensuring that there is this fundamental rights accorded to humanity, and ensure that we assist where possible to make the evolution less painful as it appears to be if there is always the overhanging threat of military incursion.
All right, thank you. So, General Haruna, I hear you when you talk about it being a democratic country and we should respect the democracy. But that's the grouse of, or that's the issue for ECOWAS in itself, that the military junta has taken over power in an unconstitutional manner. And not only is he a threat to democracy in Niger, which it already is, but to the other African countries bordering this nation, especially because we've had coups in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Guinea very recently. Is this not in itself a threat to democracy?
Well, I don't seem to agree that it is a threat to democracy, because democracy itself, even though it is viewed as the best form of government, does not evolve in a democratic way. I have cited an example where there is a practicing parliamentary system in a democracy, but it did not evolve on the basis of democratic movement or democratic instigation. And none of these other countries that have gotten governed through coups have been challenged the way the ECOWAS is now undertaking to challenge Niger. And the question is why? They are supporting themselves because they believe fundamentally they have a right for their people to find how they should be governed and to accept what constitutes good governance to them. As at now, the people of Niger seem to be saying that we have a government, but it's not a good government. And even though it is constitutional, it is not fulfilling the ends of democracy and good governance or freedom. And we wish to change it. And we're having a plan of 3 years in order to evolve what will be more acceptable, because after all, the government is for the people, by the people, if it is a true democracy. It is an expression of the sovereignty of the people. And I think that outsiders should get involved in a way that they are dictating what should be their own democratic process or democratic results.
All right. General, let me ask you this. Just recently, the president of Liberia, George Weah, he said that Africa should focus more on sit-tight presidents, those who want third terms and fourth terms and want to be there forever until death do them part. That those people are the ones that African leaders should focus on. And it looks like his way of voting in support of that is by not showing up at the meeting of ECOWAS and sending his Minister of Foreign Affairs. Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, what would you advise African leaders to do when it's to do with those leaders that want second and third and fourth terms in office or want to remain forever, thus leaving room for people to plan coups to remove them because they've passed their sell-by date? What's your thoughts, sir?
Well, my thoughts really is that since the independence, the African countries, the post-former colonial countries, have been evolving. And sit down presidents, I think they have overcome their usefulness. But we are sufficiently organized with a system through which the opinions of the heads of states or heads of government, African political leaders, could make their views heard. They don't have to resort to invasion in order to assert their opinion that the people should be giving, or there should be higher value given to the people's participation in government. And there are institutions that they can exploit to ensure that the process of enthroning a government in these sit-down countries are adopted. And I think that when Gaddafi was alive, he tried to motivate the African leaders towards a stronger form of constitutional government that the people will believe in, and that there will be no room for the kind of sitting governments and presidencies that we have, like our neighbor. I think that they're an aberration to our present state of development as political states. So they should be removed, but we shouldn't wait until they are removed by coup. Then we start organizing an invasion on their country. I think diplomacy should be exhausted. It's painstaking, it takes time, and the governments who are spearheading diplomacy and negotiations for better forms of government and governance should themselves be aware that they are talking from a very firm, credible, moral base as political leaders in a democracy.
Okay. We have talked about all of this. Your position has constantly been, oh, let us allow Niger do their thing and all of that. They are a sovereign nation, and we get that position and the point of view. But I'd like to ask you this. What would you now say about countries like Mali and Burkina Faso that have already sent in warplanes to get the Nigerians ready for an eventuality of war? What would you say as regards that? Is that not provocative in itself?
Well, they are behaving true to their own path and belief of the evolution of the independence and the rights of the people in their countries, and to give support to the governments or ideologies they're hand in gloves with or they support. I think if you have a family, Julian, no matter how weak or light in power it is, you would like to chip in and support them where you are in agreement. After all, it's the same thing the ECOWAS are doing. They don't believe in unconstitutional government in this day and time, but they have rather sidestepped the procedures through the negotiations, diplomatic negotiations, or through diplomatic dialogue with African Union and through agencies of the United Nations. I think that the supporting countries are supported because they believe in the objectives which they themselves have set for their people. The Nigerian position in the ECOWAS initiative, I think that is one that should seek for leadership of the sub-region in a sustainable path or trajectory that will augur for the future of the region. I believe that aggressive diplomacy or the aggressive kinetic engagement has no certainty of its end or as how long it will be. And the postulation actually is that is a proxy war where the beneficiaries of the combat are lying down behind, instigating the warfare, who will end up as the best beneficiaries of the war.
Thank you so much,
sir. They will supply logistics, and they are not doing it free.
All right.
And the conspiracy is not free. It's motivated by self-interest.
Thank you so much, Major General Ibrahim Bata Malgwi Haruna, retired, for your time with us this morning, dissecting the updates on the Niger coup hunter crisis.